Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm good.
Am I the only one here?
Well, there is somebody else, but it doesn't seem to be connecting. I don't know why, but
Oh,
we had quite a few register, so I don't know if I who knows what happened, but I'm going to do it anyway.
love it. So I am actually, well, I should be good for the majority of it. I'm actually going to be getting in my truck towards the very end and start driving, but I will be here listening for sure.
Oh, awesome. Well, we've got more people coming in. I guess people
Oh,
are
perfect.
running a little bit late this evening, but thanks for joining. And Carol,
Yes.
let's just join. Hello. Hi. I'm seeing all kinds of names and faces that I don't recognize. It's so fun. I'm Jennifer Takagi. Welcome. And Carol, I was just talking about, Carol, I was just talking to Beth Ann about we had quite a few register, and I don't know if they're just going to filter in late, but we're going to go ahead and just do it. I'm excited. I love teaching. This is like one of my favorite things. So tonight we're going to talk about your intuition. So have you ever had an intuition about something and then didn't listen to it, only to be really sad that you didn't listen to it? And likewise, have you ever listened to your intuition and things turned out really well and you thought, wow, I should really do that. I should listen to my intuition a little more often. Well, welcome to my talk, to my workshop, Unleashing Your Intuitive Leadership Potential, because we don't often equate intuition and leadership together. And one of the people that comes to mind for me as somebody who did that was Henry Ford, because Henry Ford was adamant that there would be a way to make a six-cylinder engine, but there was like no um, precedent for that. Nobody had done it before. So, where did he get the idea to do that? Well, I think he got the idea from intuition, gut feeling, information from above, whether you call that God, universe, spirit, your own alter ego, your higher self, it doesn't really matter. It's all the same place, it's all above coming down and feeding into us. Another person that comes to mind is Oprah. Oprah had a really rough childhood. She didn't necessarily have the best role models to help put her life together. And she still made it. She made it big. Well, where did she ever get the idea that she could turn into an amazing talk show host? First, she was a newscaster and then a talk show host. All those ideas come from deep within. They come from somewhere. And it's our job to start listening to that and figuring out where it comes from. Well, my career, the majority of my career was working for the federal government. And the reason I worked for the federal government was I was really all about the stability and having a steady paycheck. So, as I'm working for the federal government, I get to teach a lot. I love teaching, I love doing trainings. So, then I got asked to do them a lot. So, one day I got called and asked to travel the country training people. And I was like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to do it. And in the end, when it's the federal government, you end up saying yes. Like you don't have much of a choice. You have to you have to do what's expected of you, so they say. So I traveled the country training. I got pretty good at it, and I decided that one day when I retired, I was going to be a trainer. That's what I was going to do. Well, little did I know I was going to get back to the office on a Friday and have it confirmed the next Wednesday that my traveling the country had led to a massive reorganization and I could either retire, relocate, or resign. We lovingly called them the R's. And what you did depended on where you were in your career and with your family situation. Well, I decided I was going to retire as quickly as possible. So I decided I had traveled and trained the whole year. I was going to be a trainer and I was going to do leadership development because I ran into a lot of people who had been promoted, but they didn't really have the leadership skills that they needed. So I was going to help with that. I retired I'd been retired 1 month. I took a month off to just play. So I'm retired now and my phone rings. Jennifer, will you come to Fort Worth, Texas and do a training for our team? Yes, I will. I'm in Oklahoma City. It's only a 3.5 hour drive. I will come down and train your people all day. And I did, and it was great. And we had a wonderful time. They walked away with valuable information. It was just fabulous. I thought that was the rest of my life. I thought it was just going to keep happening. And guess what? My phone didn't ring again. So nobody's calling, nobody's finding me, nothing is happening. Slowly but surely, I get a few calls here and there. And my girlfriend invites me to a Chamber of Commerce event. So I go and we do all the fun things at a chamber event. I had never been, met a lot of people, had beers, walked through, did a cakewalk and won like a bundt cake thing. It was really fun. And as we walked out the door, I'm not paying attention where I'm going. And I literally step off the curb and fall into this woman's arms. She is a business coach. Is that a coincidence? Maybe not. I didn't even know what a business coach was. So I ended up following her in the end, hired her, and then hired coach after coach, trying to figure this all out. Like, how do you be a leadership coach? How do you help people? How do you get hired to do workshops, trainings? And I coach after coach, event after event, and things were just not working out for me until this one mastermind I was in. And the leader of the mastermind brought in speakers. And one of the speakers was a spiritual healer. Well, I did not know what a spiritual healer was either. But she walked around the room and talked to each of us individually. I think there were about 10 of us in the room. And she just knew things. And I was like, wow, okay, I don't know about this. So she offered a free consult. I hop on the phone, have the consult with her. And I was like, how do I hire you? And she was like, do you want to know how much it costs? And I said, no, no, I just need you. I know I need you. And this is what I want to do. So I worked with her for a number of months. Then I ended up working with a few other coaches, meet a few more people. And I ended up in a 10 or 12 week coaching program on Akashic Records. Well, I had heard of Akashic Records. I'd even had a reading one time, but I didn't really know what it was. So we have this reading, and Akashic Records are the messages on your soul. And in the Old Testament, it talks about the book of life, how our name was written in the book of life before we've ever seen one day. And it's kind of like that. And it's like the information on your soul. That's part of your gut feeling where you just kind of know stuff, and you know stuff because it's on your heart, it's on your soul, it's heavenly inspired. So I learned to read Akashic Records. I think that's super fun. I'm only doing this for my own self, for my own personal development and growth. No intention of using this in my business. And then one day I get an email and it says, congratulations, Jennifer, you're a certified soul care coach. What? I didn't even know that was a thing. So I went into this women's group, a business group I was in, and I was like, hey, ladies, I am a certified soul care coach. I can read your Akashic record. Who wants a spot? So I opened up my calendar with 5 dates and times, and lo and behold, 5 people took me up on my 5 spots, like instantly, like they were gone in an hour. I say instant, but an hour is almost instant. Took all my spots. Nobody had ever taken me up on any offer I had ever made. I was so thrilled. So I do the first reading. I'm a little nervous. I don't know this woman at all. I don't know anything about her. And you connect with somebody and you share messages. And I was like, this is really scary. So we have our call, and at the end she said, "Can I write you a testimonial?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like, I had no idea. Like, you fight as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, you fight for testimonials. You want people to be able to say that you did a good job. And I was like, wow. So a couple of months later, I woke up one morning and I thought, that's it. I'm going all in on the spiritual woo side, and I'm going to just ditch the leadership piece. Like, this has not been working well for me. I'm out. I learned Holy Fire Reiki. I am introduced to the emotion code and then the body code, where you can release the trapped emotions that are literally trapped in your body that impede wellness, healing, whether it's emotional, spiritual, or physical. And the body code also is like a little more in-depth way of creating that alignment. I loved it. It was so fun, and has been so fun. And it's been really fun working with clients. And then it kind of hit me that the really good intuitive leaders like Henry Ford and Oprah, Steve Jobs can be thrown in there too. Going way, way back, Marie Curie, with inventing or being part of inventing x-rays. Like, we've all had an x-ray at some point, at least most of us have. So all these people, like, how do they do these things? It is with their intuition, their gut feeling. So intuition is like the little whisperings that we get. And the question becomes, are we listening, and are we incorporating those in our leadership skills? I can't tell you how many times I was told that I needed to do something a certain way at work. And it was typically on those soft skill kind of things, like dealing with employees. And I was like, yep, nope, this is not the right thing. And I did what I was told, and it just didn't quite work out like anybody expected. When you start listening, then there are huge changes. Like, everything can shift. And I'm a Christian. I've always known. I was born on a Monday. My first time in church was the following Sunday. I've always known. I've always gotten little messages, but I didn't necessarily pay attention. Like, that was not like a big thing for me. So when I was in high school, one of my girlfriends said, "I think you should date Keith." And I was like, no. He's like that brooding type, stands back. You feel like he's judging every move you make, that guy at school. And I was like, no, I'm not going to date him. Well, I'm in college, and he and several other guys from high school, they were all a year or more ahead of me, came down to the University of Oklahoma, followed me down there. Not really follow me, but we all ended up there. And we would all go do things together because we had known each other for several years. And then before I know it, Keith asked me out and we start dating. And I thought, man, this is just a bad idea. So we're dating several months, and I thought, I just should not be dating him. So I called him up and I was like, hey, I just want you to know that I don't think this is a good idea. And I think that we probably should break up. And he said, oh, I'm on my way over. No. So he comes over. I remember sitting on my bed, Indian style, and he's standing up with his back against my dresser. It's like it was yesterday. And I was like, I just don't think we should be dating. And about that time, he just like slides to the floor and just starts sobbing. Well, I'm 20 years old. I don't really know what to do with this. I just know I don't want to date him, but I don't know how to finish this breakup. So we were broken up like, I don't know, 7 minutes maybe. And I took him back right away because I didn't know what else to do. I don't know what to do with a crying guy. So we get back together. Several months pass, and one evening he didn't answer the phone, and I thought, oh, well, I'm just going to run by and see if he's home. and his car was out front. So I pulled around and parked in the back. And this was a really old house, and they had converted the back porch, the sunroom, into a bedroom, and that was his bedroom. So I parked the car. I go walking up the steps. I open the door, and this whole time, this voice inside me is screaming, "Don't do it. Just go home. Don't do it. Just go home." But I didn't. I went inside, only to find him laying on the bed, making out with this girl, Shannon. Well, luckily they were all fully clothed on top of the bedspread, but I was mortified. I was like, what is going on here? And she starts scrambling to get off the bed, and she said, "I think I should leave." And he goes, "No, you shouldn't leave. You were invited." Jennifer wasn't. I was mortified. So I left, and the whole time I'm thinking, this is it. I should break up with him. Did I break up with him? No, I did not break up with him, because I decided I was getting him back. I knew not to get him back. I knew I shouldn't be dating him. Fast forward, I married him. I married him after, at the rehearsal, my dad walks me partway down the aisle, and there's a split in the pews and says, "Turn, run like hell." And I didn't. My dad knew. My girlfriends, not one of them threw me a shower. Why? Because they hated him. They did not want me to marry him. As a matter of fact, they all showed up at my aunt's house for a shower my aunt threw me. And one of them had just gotten engaged. And so everybody is fawning over her new engagement ring. I knew not to marry him. Then the next morning, hey, Paige, the next morning, my uncle calls, my dad's brother, and says, "Do we have to do this wedding, or have you canceled it yet?" No, I hadn't canceled the wedding. So I've got all my girlfriends, I've got my dad, and now I have my uncle saying, "Don't marry this guy." Not to mention that I knew not to marry the guy. We're laying on a beach in Mexico for our honeymoon, and I looked over at him and thought, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done marrying this guy? So I'm not listening to any intuition anywhere. We've been married 12 months and 11 days. And let me tell you, it was the longest 12 months and 11 days of my life. And I went to dinner with my girlfriend, and I came home, and he had moved out while I was at dinner. So I never did listen to my intuition, but obviously he listened to his. And his sweet mother called me and said, "Oh, Jennifer, I'm so sorry. If I had ever known you were so nice, I wouldn't have let you marry my son." But that is when your intuition is screaming at you, and you're saying, yeah, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to do my own thing. So fast forward a few years. It's a beautiful spring morning in Oklahoma, and I wake up and I am so sick. I have bronchitis. I am coughing up a lung. I smoked. And if you've never smoked, you don't understand this. But if you've ever smoked or been around a smoker, it doesn't matter how sick you are. You're still going to smoke. So I'm sitting at the kitchen table, smoking cigarettes, trying to decide, am I well enough to go to work, or am I sick enough to stay home? Well, my godmother had told me one time that when God speaks to you, it's gentle and calm, but it may not make sense. If the devil talks to you, it makes perfect sense, but it's very harsh and judgmental. And it doesn't matter if you call it God, your higher self, the universe, or you call it the devil or your ego. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but we all have those voices. Some are gentle and kind and don't make any sense, and some are a little bit harsh, but they make perfect sense. So I'm sitting at the table debating, do I go to work? Do I stay home? And this soft, gentle voice said, stay home. Take care of yourself. Well, I was 31 years old. You don't stay home and take care of yourself at 31. You go to work. You trudge right through. This very harsh voice said, go to work. You have things to do, and went so far as to list off my to-do list. So I decided in the end I was going to split the difference. I was going to go in at noon. So I call my boss's secretary, Teresa. She answers the phone and I was like, "Hey, Teresa, it's Jennifer." And she goes, "Oh my gosh, you sound terrible. You're not coming in, are you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to try to come in at noon if I feel better." And she goes, "Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow." That was the last time I ever talked to Teresa. It was April 19th, 1995, the day that has come to be known as the Oklahoma City bombing. I was a federal employee and I worked in the Murrah Federal Building. The building sheared off about 3 feet south of my desk, and I got back a crumpled nameplate and a few crumpled photos. I listened to my intuition and I survived. And I firmly believe that God was yelling at everybody else in the office to be somewhere else, go somewhere else. But in the office, people are on the phone, they're in meetings, and they can't hear. I'm often asked if I have survivor's guilt, and the answer is no. I've never had any survivor's guilt because I firmly believe it wasn't my day. I don't know why it was anybody else's day. I just know it wasn't mine. You would think at this point in my story, I would start listening to my intuition, but it took all those years later when I actually retired and met a business coach who brought in a spiritual healer for me to step into it in full force. I had little inklings at various points. I had been driving down the street and there was a car to my left, and I could see this car coming down the street. We had a stoplight that was just turning green, was not going to stop. And I needed to tell the woman next to me because I could see the car, she couldn't. And I ended up standing on my brakes and laying on the horn. And it was just instinct to do that. But they didn't teach me that at driver's ed. How did I know to do that? It's putting all the pieces together of your past experiences, and it's having that gut instinct, that idea of what you should do. There are 4 super basic forms of intuition that people often talk about, and that's hearing messages, which is clairaudient, and that's me. I typically hear messages. Seeing messages is clairvoyant. Knowing things, you just know something is bad or something is good. I've had that happen only a few times where it was just super obvious. And one time was when a group of us girls had gone for a birthday party, and a man came in that one of them knew and introduced us. And I didn't like him instantly, which does not happen for me. And as it turned out, I was totally right. The guy was bad news from the start. So the claircognizant are the people who just know things. And then you've got the clairsentient, the people who feel things, like the hair on the back of their neck stands up. They just feel something. And most of us have had some or all of those experiences at some point, but we need to hone in and pay attention to really get good at those messages. As a leader, if you want to step into intuition even more, there are a few things that you can do that will help build your intuition muscle, if you will. One thing you can do is journal. If you write down the thoughts and ideas you have, and then every couple of weeks, go back and see if you can find a thread, see if things come together and piece together for you. That can help you start getting an idea of things that might fit together that you may not have seen before. So journaling is really great. Pardon me. And then looking back for those patterns. Sometimes we can physically use our intuition and help prime it along. So one thing we can do is the sway test. Anybody heard of the sway test, where you physically tune in to see if an answer is yes or no? So with the sway test, and if you're not driving a car, if you're sitting or standing and you're kind of relaxed, but sitting up straight, standing tall, You ask yourself a question, and if the answer is yes, your body will lean forward just a little bit. And if the answer is no, you will lean back. So if I say, is my name Jennifer, I lean into it. You lean into things that are true and you back away from things that are not true. So is my name Jennifer? And I lean forward. Is my name Carol? No. Is my name Jennifer? Yes. Is my name Beth Ann? No. So that's how we can do it, by physically using our body. And it's called the sway test. You can be at the grocery store. Camera freaked. You can be at the grocery store and decide, should you have cow's milk, almond milk, coconut milk? And you can just say, should I have cow's milk? And my body goes back just a little bit. I'm not lactose intolerant. I don't have any allergy to it, but I just seem to do better with coconut milk or almond milk. But your body will let you know. So when you're at the store, you can stand there and you can kind of feel into what you might want to get. Another way is the ring test, ring and ring. I'm told it's supposed to be your ring finger and thumb. I use my middle finger because it's more comfortable. It doesn't really matter in my experience. But you don't squeeze your fingers so tight. You just gently have a little pressure. Is my name Jennifer? And it's a little tight. Is my name Carol? And my fingers break apart. Am I in Florida? No. Am I in Texas? No. Am I in Oklahoma? Yes. It's a little firmer. It takes practice. And one of the things I read recommended that you have like 100 questions that are yes, no, so that you can easily get the yes, no, and get it really, really honed in. Now, for me, I was taught using a pendulum. And my first pendulum was actually a necklace that had a weighted drop on it, so that it has to have a little bit of weight. So pendulums work out great because they have weight. And you ask a question, show me a yes, and see how it's swaying forward and back. Show me a no, and it's going around counterclockwise. That's how it does it for me. I've seen people and the pendulum just barely moves a teeny tiny bit. And mine, it just goes. it goes. So those are 3 simple ways you can test your intuition, because that's one question people often have. And if you have other questions, be sure to put them in the chat and we'll see if I can get to your questions too. But those are ways that you can start honing in and leaning into your intuition. And that sway test literally will help you lean into it. Sometimes in a leadership situation, you're wondering, like, how am I going to balance that with the things that we have to do? What are we going to do about that? Like, I'm told to do this, and strategically we have things to do. How do you marry those? Like, that was a big question for me. How do you marry those? Well, the first thing is you tap into your intuition. It is very difficult to hear messages if you're not quiet. And if you have music, it's best if the music doesn't have words to it, because you really have to be calm and be still. And I really believe on April 19th, the reason I could hear the message to stay home was because I was quiet. The house was perfectly still. I could hear the message. So in order for you to tap in and listen, the first thing is to have a quiet place, or be able to like block out the other things around you. And then use your rational mind to analyze the information. It's kind of a both and. I do energy healing work with emotion code and body code, and people are like, oh, so are you anti-modern medicine? Nope, not at all. I'm a both and kind of girl. I want modern medicine, and I want to give it as many possible opportunities to work as I possibly can. So you have to tap into the both of it. Is it practical? Will it work? Is it strategic? If you're working for a corporation or an organization, does it fit what the policies and procedures are? So it all has to marry together. But again, it's listening in and tuning in to, does this make sense? Does this make sense? And will this work? So sometimes it becomes, what are your values? What are your values and how does it all link up? So I was teased mercifully off and on through my entrepreneurial journey that how on earth could I possibly work for the federal government and be so intuitive and so woo? Well, I didn't already always be this way. I wasn't always completely woo. So I've been called the woo for the non-woo. And someone said, you need to do a talk from federal employee to woo. Yeah, it's probably on the agenda. I haven't done it yet, but it's probably on the agenda. How do your values align with what you're doing now? Whether you're working for someone else, working for yourself, retired and building a life outside of working full time. I can't get my husband to do that just yet. I'm kind of hoping one day he will. How do you put that together? So with the federal government, I mentioned before that stability is one of my top values. So working for the federal government, you typically have a steady paycheck. I can think of a couple of times during my whole career when we were furloughed because Congress wouldn't do their job and get budgets passed, and we were furloughed, but we ended up being paid in the end. And in the most recent years, furlough situations, people have said to me, oh, I don't know why anybody's worried. You always get paid. Yes, but that has to be voted on. So it's not a sure thing. So that really would rock my stability world there. But I wanted the stability. And with that stability, I was able to find great ways to bring great value. But it needs to align with what you're doing. And if your values don't align with what you're doing, it can create an immense amount of stress. I worked with a gentleman who said on more than one occasion that he really didn't have any use for low-income people. They needed to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and do better. And we worked in low-income housing. So how hard was that to go to work every day for him when he didn't have a heart or appreciation for the client base that we served? I think it was really pretty hard the whole 8 years he was there. So you have to consider what you're doing and how you're doing it, and if it fits and if it feels good, and how does that play out for you? So when you start talking about unleashing your intuitive leadership potential, one of the things is breaking through limiting beliefs. What stories are you telling yourself? What stories are going through your head that could be keeping you from stepping into your greatness? Using the body code and emotion code, I identified that I had a message that was like running like a radio playing in the background, just a low frequency, a message of I can't. And I thought, that's not true. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it's true. And about a month after clearing that, my husband and I had the opportunity to go to a magnificent wedding in Italy, and we stayed over and went traveling, and we went to Pompeii. It was probably close to 100 degrees, and there's really no shade for a lot of the ruins of Pompeii. It was so hot. And we walk her up this ramp, and the guide says, walk up part way and turn and look at the beautiful view. Well, I've had both knees operated on. I might be a little fluffier than I should be. And there is a time I would have looked at that staircase and said, oh, no, I cannot do it. I probably would have sat down halfway. I probably would have been a little teary. My husband would have been humiliated trying to drag me up the steps to get to the top so we could even get to the ruins. That was like at the beginning of the ruins. As it were, I walked straight to the top. I turned around and took in the magnificent view below. But had I had that message of I can't still running through, it would have been much more difficult for me to get to the top of that staircase. What messages are going through your head that you hear every day that you may not have taken notice of? What messages are out there that are impacting you, the decisions you make, how you live your life? I remember hearing a lot the saying, life's a bitch and then you die. And I always thought that was just like kind of heartbreaking. But what kind of negative mindset is that? And what does that attract? What you put out there, you get back. It's all kind of like a boomerang effect. And if you're saying things like that, even if it's just in your head and it doesn't come out your mouth, that is going to impact the way things happen, the way things work. So, what are the things that you're saying? I highly encourage you to spend a few minutes and consider the thoughts you've had during the day. We have, there's actually a number to it, how many millions of thoughts we have a day. And there's a huge chunk of them that are negative, or they are not nice. They are not supporting us in being wonderful, magnificent beings that we are. So I encourage you to take a look at that, make a list, and then do the flip. Flip it over and make it a positive. You can actually record them on your phone, listen to them. People talk about having mantras, listening to positive affirmations, and you need to identify what those stories are, what those phrases are that you tell yourself all the time. I didn't even realize mine was, I can't. And that was running through there. Working with clients, I help them to identify what stories are going through their head so they can clear them out. One client said, I really want to talk about abundance. Like, I think I have a great business and things are well, but I think they could be better. Well, we identified several trapped emotions. She actually knew exactly what happened that led to the emotion on each of the cases of the emotions that came up and the ages associated with them. And we cleared those out. Well, once you clear them out, you have to take action. Without action, nothing is really going to happen. So she sat down and journaled about what she would want to happen in her business so that she could be abundant. Her business could be abundant and she could have a more abundant life. And she decided in her journaling that she wanted to offer a $25,000 one-on-one program. And in this program, it was going to be a done for you service. She writes it all down. And like a week later, a man called and said, hey, I need you to do this for me. She didn't know the man. It wasn't like a prospect or somebody she had been working with. And she said, yes, I can do that for you. It'll be $25,000. She ended up having 3 other people come forward in the next month and agree to pay her $25,000 to put their programs together. That was $100,000 in a month after clearing the trapped emotions standing in her way. Are these results normal? No. Can I guarantee them? No. This woman had done a lot of work on herself, and this was just kind of like the icing on the cake that needed to be smoothed out so she could step into her greatness. So you have to identify those. You also have to have a growth mindset. I know a woman whose husband lost his job, and she kept telling me that they were dirt poor. They were just dirt poor. Well, I was pretty sure they weren't dirt poor. So one day we were talking and I said, are you dirt poor, like you can't make your mortgage payment and you're going to lose everything? Because that is dirt poor. Or are you travel poor? You don't have extra cash to travel and play and do what you want. There are 2 kinds of poor. If you stay focused on what you don't have, then you're not in a growth mindset. A growth mindset is always looking for abundance. It's very grateful, looking for the good, trying to find the good, and assuming the good is going to come. And if you don't have a growth mindset, you have a very fixed mindset. And we know those people who say, this is just the way it is. This is the way it's always been. There's no room for change. This is how my grandmother did it. My mother did it. It's how I'm going to do it. Yes. And is that how you want to do it? Is that how you want to show up for the world? Those are questions that we have to ponder for ourselves and figure out how we want to do that. We also need to embrace self-love and self-confidence. How do you do that? How do you embrace loving yourself? You're supposed to be humble. At least that was the story I always heard growing up. Self-love is giving yourself grace when you make a mistake. Self-love is taking care of your needs. We are so busy taking care of the needs of everyone else. We need to take care of ourselves and our own needs. Self-confidence. Where does self-confidence come from? I just heard something recently and I can't think where. And it was all about how self-confidence is completely within you. Nobody can give you self-confidence. Well, no one can give you self-confidence. However, people can help you unleash yours, uncover yours, bring it to the top. So one thing I love to do is say one of my biggest accomplishments as a 7-year-old was learning how to tell time. I'm the youngest of 4, and they would say, we're leaving in 10 minutes. I didn't know what 10 minutes was. Well, does that mean I just have time to put on my shoes and run out the door? Do I have time to brush my teeth? Can I change my dress? What does 10 minutes mean? I was working with a client and she said, oh, I've never done anything. And I said, well, okay, so like 5 to 10 years old, like what was your biggest accomplishment? For me, like reading and learning how to tell time. And she goes, oh yeah, I learned to read at 4. By the time I was in kindergarten, I could read full books, not even picture books. And I was like, and you're sitting there telling me you don't know how to do anything? You have no skills? No, you have a lot of skills if you can read when you're starting kindergarten. Now things are a little bit different. They're pushing kids a lot further. But when I started school, you had to know how to spell your name, your address, your phone number, and your parents' name. So like if you got lost, they could find you. The alphabet. And did I say tie your shoes? You had to know how to tie your shoes. Now it's a little bit different. But back then, that was like what you had to do. If you start making a list of all the things you've done and accomplished, and you take a moment to celebrate that, that to me is one of the biggest self-confidence boosters you can ever possibly have. Take time to celebrate what you're doing. When I was still with the government, I was in charge of a huge project in Washington, D.C., and literally every day when something worked out, I would run up and down the hall screaming, victory, victory, I declare victory. And people would go, what is she excited about today? And it was because everything was so hard. If I didn't celebrate every victory, I wasn't going to be able to get to the finish line, which I did. But it was a little hard. But I did it. Huge accomplishment for me. The other thing is you have to take action, and it's inspired action. It's intuitive action. I love this statement. You can't steer a parked car. You have to be in motion. A body in motion stays in motion. I love the commercial about that. It's super cute. But you have to be doing something. So my client who brought in the $100,000, after our session, she did something. And what she did was journal about what she wanted. And once she got it from her brain, from her heart, down her arm, out the end of her pen onto her pad, she created her reality. And I love working with clients one-on-one, and I have recently created a group program that is Intuitive Leadership Mastery. And it's a 6-week program where you can gain greater awareness and understanding of your strengths, weaknesses, and passions, because we need to be doing things we love. Increase your self-confidence and resilience to overcome those obstacles that are going to come around, and develop a clear vision for your future, because those are the kind of things that we need. We need to be clear on what we want and have a path to get there. Along with this, I will be doing one-on-one sessions with each person who registers, so that we can do emotion code and body code work and clear out the things that are standing in your way. And when we come together as a group, we will do quick group clearings, because you get a group of people together and the energy becomes synchronized. And so we all end up having a similar vibration of negative things or positive things. So we'll do that too. And yesterday I was on a super cool thing where it was write a book in a day. And I wrote my book in a day. So I have a new book up on Amazon, and it's Intuitive Leadership, Unleashing Your Spiritual Guide. So, I think that's the name of it. I think, when you just write it, it happens so quickly. Unlocking your spiritual potential for business success. So super fun. I have just really loved putting it together and bringing so much of this together so that it makes sense. It makes sense for me, and hopefully makes sense for you. That was a lot of me talking. Does anybody have any questions or anything you want to talk about, add, or share? I would love to open up the mic.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us.
You are so welcome, Beth Ann. There have been a few. Well, thank you all for joining me, because it's kind of late on a Thursday night. Please reach out. You obviously have my contact information. Let me know if you have any questions, or if there's any way that I can serve you further. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Carol.
Much appreciated. Bye.
Bye.